You're listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with host Doc Martin. How do you step into your maximum potential? How do you connect your spiritual drive with your physical path? Get ready to meet the maximum you the world needs on Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin now. Hi, everybody. I'm here today with Allyn Evans. And Allyn's got an interesting journey we're going to talk about because she is currently in her role as CEO of the Monroe Institute. And you have heard me talk about the Monroe Institute, how I really think Bob Monroe was a shaman without realizing he was a shaman. And so Allyn will tell you all the behind the scenes stuff and things like that. But welcome, Allyn. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So nice to have you here. So once upon a time, you were a Reiki practitioner.
Yes.
Then how did you go from there to Monroe and from Monroe to CEO?
So I actually was a trainer for the Monroe Institute first, and that started in 2011. And then over the course of the time, I met this wonderful ER doctor, Dr. Brian Daly, and I actually met him here at the Institute. And so about 2015, he contacts me and he says he's wanting to put together some kind of program for physicians and nurses and anyone like PAs, anyone that's helping in that hospital conventional setting. And so he reached out to me. So I started helping him create. We did several different courses. We started with one called Sound Healing, where we were using the sound technology for practical, like medical applications, just to help like relieve stress, to help people relax, to help with sleep, help with pain management. And then later we created a course around Reiki. And he was a long-time Reiki practitioner, Reiki teacher. So I had Reiki earlier in my life, and it had not been an experience that gave me much trust in it as a modality. And I had someone that introduced me to it that just didn't explain it to me. So, when you think about how that training works, if you don't get all the information, it can make a skeptic really doubt what's happening. So I fell into that category. So Brian would say to me, as because we started doing trainings, it's not I'd say it was disappointing was that we never ever penetrated the physicians market. We just could not get that audience interested.
That's a difficult audience.
Yeah. So then we positioned to just general public, and that was very successful.
So physicians, I'll just share my take on us. Most of the time there's a fear that if you can't quote a study, you've been taught to look at everything through the perspective of science. So even when you have profound experiential evidence, you disbelieve it.
Right.
Because I thought I'm a science girl. I went to graduate school, I went to medical school, and then I studied shamanism and had these experiences. And I was like, no, can't be. And then more experiences. And then the more you open, then boom, there you are. And then you never go back.
Exactly.
But it does take, now I'm kind of surprised because an ER doc, that's such a hard driving adrenaline, boom, boom, boom. You hardly have time even to talk to the patient. You're busy juggling stuff. So for a practitioner to have gone into Reiki, kept going in Reiki, and then wanting to bring this, he was very special to me. He was a very unique personality.
Yes, he was. And I miss him terribly.
I'll bet you do. Hmm.
when we would be training, he would say to me, "Okay, come on, you need to start doing this Reiki stuff. You know, you're a natural healer. You know
Hmm.
what to do. You know, you've been
Hmm.
trained." And I would say, "Nope, nope, nope.
Hmm.
I've got other things to do. I'm checking on the sound technology." And so, but as I continued to train with him, and I would witness things that were happening, I also was listening to his lectures about the science behind it
Hmm.
over and over and over. And then I actually started having sensations myself, you know, when I would be uh, trying to do it. And so it just all came together at one point, and I was like, yeah, this stuff is real, and I want to get more involved. And so,
So my evolution of my podcast, it's titled Maximum Medicine, and I started this maybe in 2007, but I was struck by how when we're in the office and we're chasing the numbers, get your cholesterol right, get your blood pressure right, get that we are missing a key element of healing,
right,
and that the healing is occurring at something that has zero to do with the numbers and the science.
yeah,
And the belief has everything to do with whether or not someone heals,
mm-hmm,
even despite everything I've done that could have mucked it up, even.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, and so that was then I took my podcast and started diving into consciousness and the unseen world. And as Bob Monroe says, you are more than your physical body.
yes, he does, or yes, he did,
And
yes, he
um,
did.
and that really started me getting guests on who are capable of healing and asking, what realms do you go to? Like, where do you get this from? And there, and then I have other guests, Professor Ernst Laszlo, who is a really famous thinker and futurist, and he says there's a universal information field
Mm,
where, and maybe Edgar Casey said the Akashic Records, maybe somebody else says the Matrix,
mm-hmm,
there's something there that all of us have access to and that we can change. And then physics is starting to prove your thoughts can change your reality.
mm-hmm,
So I'm now down that rabbit hole of, you know, where does healing come from? How do we access it? So that's what I was interested to ask you when you started studying Monroe, and how did it impact your Reiki practicing? Or were you still a skeptic that you were kind of keeping the two separate?
So I would, I did, I was a trainer for Monroe starting in 2011. My Reiki practice came along where I actually was a practitioner and a Reiki master teacher. That was 2017, 2018,
Hmm.
that I did that. No, actually 2018, 2019, 2020. That's when I did that. And so certainly my initial driving, my purpose for showing up at the Monroe Institute in the first
Hmm.
place was because I wanted to be more intuitive, more psychic. I wanted to have a way to have two-way communication with my own guidance, with my higher self or total self, as Bob called it, Bob Monroe. Um, and so that was what was pushing me.
Hmm.
And then as I continued that journey and I started having that expansion of those intuitive abilities, I was introduced to Reiki around 2015. Well, the
Hmm.
Reiki that stuck was
Hmm.
2015.
Hmm.
And what I found interesting is when I started doing the Reiki practice very seriously, and that would have been starting in 2018, it opened up my intuitive abilities to a whole new level.
Hmm.
So that was what was impressive to me. But I see them as, the sound technology, what we do with Monroe, whether it's the sound technology or whether it's the methodology that we teach, it weaves in with all different types of practices, modalities. It's a
Hmm.
support. So I think they are a good marriage, but there are other things that could be married with it that would be just as powerful, like
Hmm.
shamanism and
Hmm.
Monroe Sound Science, for example, or
Hmm.
even someone that's needing support between psychedelic experiences. Monroe Sound Science can be that bridge.
And Monroe Sound Science and I'm a newbie to Monroe. My first class was the gateway, and
Yeah.
Archie was one of my teachers. And what I found is the speed at which I could get into the altered state that I can get into when I put on my shaman hat. When
Yes.
I had to sit there and consciously tell myself, leave your thinking outside, just feel it, just sense it. And with the sound science, boom, you're there.
hmm And that's the beauty of it.
Mhm,
You can learn, and we actually say this and teach this. You can learn to do this without the sound technology. But the
mhm,
sound technology is a wonderful tool, a training tool to help you reach those states, maintain those states.
mhm.
Now, for you, you'd already reached some of those states, but it took you a while to get there.
Right,
So for you, it became a support to help you get there faster. And
right.
probably now, if you remove the sound technology, you get there faster
Mhm.
just because of that training.
And when you're have the sound, which I'm assuming for a newbie, it's sort of drowning out your thoughts or
Yeah,
chatter away that are
it
saying,
helps.
"Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah, it
uh-huh."
definitely. And
Mhm,
it's interesting. It meets you where you are. So if you were someone like my mother who really struggled with meditation,
mhm,
she would always tell me she couldn't do it. And then I introduced her to the sound technology.
mhm,
Yeah, it helped her do what you're saying, get
mhm,
away from that chatter, relax, and just and help stop the monkey mind or the chatter. Someone that's been meditating a long time, then it can enhance what they're doing. It can
mhm.
possibly help them stay in a state longer than maybe they would have on their own. And so again, it meets you where you are.
What I also reflected on, and I did the initial opening program, the Gateway Voyage, and Bob leads you with his, and he's got wonderful methodology.
Yeah.
He was really a genius in that.
Yes, he was.
And it takes you to different, he calls them focuses.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
might I might call them dimensions or realms.
Yeah.
Um, but the physical leftovers or transformation is different at each one. The depth that you get to. Am I accurate in sensing that?
So actually, it's very purpose driven. And so he
Hmm.
called them focus levels, and it's considered like the territory of the map of consciousness or the extended states of awareness.
Hmm.
So it's helping you with the recipes that are, involved in each focus level. It's
Hmm.
helping you go to a similar state that other people experience. For example, the first one you learn, the foundational state, is focus 10, and
Hmm.
that's body asleep, mind awake. And it's foundational because it helps you get into these very deep, deep, relaxed states where your body can actually fall
Hmm.
asleep and you're
Hmm.
still alert. So it's a training for you to be able to stay aware as you're having these deep, deep meditative experiences. Yeah.
What was really neat, and it happened in my shaman training as well, the whole class shared a collective consciousness in many
Ah,
moments.
yeah, those are
Tell
fun.
me your experience as a teacher of that,
So
watching that in your class and your students.
yeah, we see that happen. And so that's why one of the most powerful things about our programs, whether it be in person or our virtual, which is our real-time Zoom type
Mhm,
platform programs, when people start sharing, they can see that they've had shared experiences.
mhm,
It's in some cases. And when Tom Campbell, who was one of Bob's earlier scientists or researchers that he hired, along with Dennis Minorich, and this was in the late 70s, they were the first to put after Dennis read an article about the binaural beat phenomena that was
mhm,
discovered in 1800s of all things. When they put all that in with what they were doing, then they experimented with it, and what they found out is it helped them have these shared experiences. So,
mhm,
one Tom would be in one prep session booth, and Dennis would be in the other, and then after it was over, they would journal what they had done, and then Bob would interview them, and then they would come together, and they would have shared experiences. So that was our first indication that it was possible. Now it happens. It does. It's a spontaneous thing that happens where
mhm,
we typically are not saying, let's go meet together, except, in Gateway, you might have heard that in Focus 21 when there's
Hmm.
something we call the bridge
Hmm.
that you meet there. Um, but it is a byproduct of it, and it does happen fairly often.
What's interesting, and again, coming from my original training was in shamanism, we know that, and it's particularly known about the Aboriginals, that they shared dream time.
Hmm.
And that in that, and I'm very aware that the people I interview and the guests that I have, my underlying purpose is to help humanity evolve,
Hmm.
help, as I'm sure yours is as well. But the Aboriginals had their dream time, and in that dream time, their shared experience, even though they didn't talk to each other about it, um, they actually dreamt the future of the tribe
Hmm.
and probably of the planet. And those are the kinds of things that as humans, we probably used to all do.
Mm.
And this may be, and again, that's why I say Bob didn't know it, but he was a shaman in the sense that he was concerned about the tribe's evolution.
Hmm.
I don't know that he actually was, but I sense that about the work that he did because that kind of shared experience and recognition that we can join in a collective space and really move humanity forward. And I think expanding, and you tell me if this makes sense to you, expanding our intuition or going back to what we probably used to innately know is really important.
I think so. I think so. And the opposite side of that is when people start thinking about how much guidance they want to have or how much direction they want to have
Hmm.
from either what they're calling guides, higher self, deceased loved ones. It can also go in the opposite direction where people are wanting um, guidance at every turn. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting balance you have to take because one,
Hmm.
it's great for self evolution. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach our highest potential. We're trying to be better people.
Hmm.
But then if we get too caught up in it, the other side of it, we take away our choices, our free will. We're handing that over.
Hmm.
And so it's been interesting to watch people navigate that. But I will say that
Maybe getting a little lazy
you know
or maybe lacking in self-confidence.
It's dependence is
Yeah.
more, yeah.
Hmm.
But I do from my own observations, most people will figure that out. That they really don't want that
Hmm. Hmm.
constant like um, s- uh, sign or something they think they've attributed to a choice needs to be made.
Yeah, I just had this image float across of somebody in royalty in the old days. And before you make any decision, you have to bring the court astrologer in
Right.
to make sure the cards are the
Right.
planets are right. And yeah. And that's another thing, that idea of our sovereignty and the expansion of our powers.
Yeah,
I mean, we really have so much ability.
we do. We
Hmm.
do. And that one of the things with getting into these Monroe, like the Monroe system, using the Monroe sound technology, doing things like Reiki, they open you up to more of
Hmm.
that being able to receive. And that's what I think it is. I think we're learning to be clear vessels, and then we can
Hmm.
receive this communication, and even we can have these two-way conversations with our bodies, with parts of our
Hmm.
body. It's
Hmm.
we really do have a lot more capability and understanding than we realize.
Tell us a little bit about the different courses and the part of our abilities that is amplified or talked or worked on in those particular courses.
So each course has its own intention and purpose. So like, Gateway Voyage is teaching you that map, and letting you
Mhm.
experience or have the experience of what Bob called the different territories, the different focus levels. And so that is I highly recommend that as the starting point because it's a
Mhm.
solid foundation. We have other programs. OB Spectrum is one where we're looking at out of experiences, but
Hmm.
also other aspects of that. We call it the phasing model. So that could be lucid dreaming, that could be projected consciousness, bilocation, those kind of things. Of course, we have the energy medicine course we've talked
Hmm.
about already. We have a course that helps you look more or connect more with guidance. We have one that's about soul retrieval, which not only is about helping others who've crossed, but helping yourself, like gathering aspects of yourself.
Hmm.
That soul fractures that have occurred along the way, whether in this lifetime or another, if you happen to believe in reincarnation or those kind of
Is that the
parallel lives.
lifelines?
Yes, that's
Mhm.
lifelines.
It's interesting. My first concept ever is when I took shamanism of learning about an energy body and a potential split, everybody said, "Well, how do you merge what you're learning there with your practice?" I'm in general practice as an internal medicine doc, and I'm like, I can't share it. I'm gonna think I'm, Lulu. But then I'll start saying to somebody something like, when I read you, it doesn't feel like you're fully here. You're not fully
Oh,
together.
yeah,
And they'll go, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm all split.
yeah,
I mean, people feel that stuff. They
yeah,
know. Or, ever since your father died, it feels like he's still here and he is in your energy field. And they say, yeah, I think about him every moment. And I say, well, is that always good? Well,
yeah.
no, I get so sad all day long. And people know, they feel what's in their energy body, don't they?
I think so. I think so.
As if you don't give them too many new words to confuse their thinking,
Yeah.
they probably know that. But what is and they're probably not teaching much because you're so busy as CEO, but what was your favorite? Did you have a favorite class to teach?
Energy medicine.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was the one that I created with Dr. Brian Daly.
Uh-huh. And what do you think they learned?
So the biggest thing that there were two things that were the biggest takeaways.
Hmm.
One is the power of intention, how
Hmm.
powerful intention is. And the other was going from I believe these things are possible to I know, because we would
Hmm.
use things like biofield imaging to help them kind of sense and see that energy is flowing.
Hmm.
And so it really, those were the two things that I would witness every time I
And
was training.
people can sense it when you say, do you feel like you're flowing clearly? They'll say,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's no. And do you feel like things are stuck? Oh, yeah, I'm stuck. Anyway.
Hmm.
So tell me what's new and coming down the pike for Monroe.
Well, so we've started creating online courses because
Hmm.
our mission is to, with a direct experience, to help people transition or transform, improve their lives. It's to reach 1% of the world's population, which is approximately 80 million people.
Hmm.
And in the past, until right before COVID, our primary source of delivery was on campus programs.
Hmm.
And we are very limited to the number that you've been here, right?
Hmm.
And so we're limited. So
Yes.
that's
Hmm.
like saying 2,000 people a year.
Hmm.
And so then we also now offer the virtual programs, which are real time Zoom type
Hmm.
Zoom platform meetings. But we also realize if we really want to reach that many people, reach people who might not have the same resources to be able to, come to the U.S. or,
Hmm.
that's a bigger expense and it's also a bigger block of time, have to take away from either family or work.
Hmm.
So we've started creating online products or online programs.
Hmm.
So Gateway Online has been created. So Gateway
Hmm.
Voyage. We just filmed OB Spectrum, so that should be
Hmm.
coming out in about 6 months. And we will be filming in late summer or early fall the Guidelines program. So we're going to continue to be creating those opportunities for people to experience beyond.
Hmm. And other than the main campus in Virginia, do you have other sites that you use?
We do. So
Mhm,
what we'll lease for a week or 2 weeks, and
mhm,
some like in Arizona, we have a place we've been going regularly. So we'll have 4 to 6 programs there. We have several in California, Chicago, Massachusetts. We did one in Florida, but that was just a one time. So we continue to look for places
mhm.
to hold programs.
And
And
you teach overseas as well?
yes, so we have international trainers,
Mhm,
and they select the venues that they're going to teach a program, and
mhm,
then they handle it all. They take the registrations in their countries or
mhm,
for the people in their language.
mhm. So what lessons do you think people learn? Do they learn about anything outside themselves in terms of steering humanity or transforming us? Do you think they come away with any of that more altruistic?
I think it's a side benefit, but I
Hmm.
think what happens is for the individual. And then from that transformation, from that self evolution or the experiences, or I no longer just believe it, I know it,
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
benefit of it. That's where the person moves. They move towards service. Um, and it's so interesting because I think one of the key things is what this allows you to do is start having two-way communication with the subconscious mind.
Hmm.
And that is where so many of our beliefs are, and I'm going to use the word trapped, but that's where are housed,
Hmm.
that are impacting us in ways we have no idea.
Hmm.
If we've never tried to bridge that gap of like what's going on with me consciously, how is the subconscious mind driving that? So
Hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest gifts that happens is you open that up for yourself. So then you also the second one that I see it regularly is people can more easily step into that crow's nest view of their
Hmm.
lives,
Hmm.
but then they do need to go back to being captain, driving that ship, but
Hmm.
they can get these sneak peeks of the broader vision for themselves, for their purpose, how they can be of service.
That's interesting because those kinds of concepts were probably major in my evolution since starting learning in shamanism, which really means learning to see a new perspective. And what I then reflected on with my patients was if they don't believe that they can have something other than their current body, they never will.
Right.
They never will. Doesn't matter how many prescriptions I give them.
Right.
And the other that is what I gained having, and I tell this story probably too often, but having come from a childhood with a lot of anxiety and dysfunction, to have that finally to learn actually how that feeling of faith resides inside you
Mhm.
and how my connections with the unseen world, with my deeper parts, with the guidance, I have sensed my ancestors, I have sensed energies from beyond the 3D world. And there is a comfort and a stability and a recognition that for me, I happen to believe our soul lives on. So I believe in reincarnation, but this knowledge that, again, that crow's nest view, this is not all there is. There is so much more.
Right.
And that's actually comforting,
Mhm. Mhm. I
you know,
agree.
that, and when you start to see and say to yourself over and over, well, such and such is true. And then you say, who says?
Yeah.
Who says? Why? Why? Why does it have to be that way? Who said it has to be that way? Who made that rule? And you
Right.
realize you're the one who made all the rules.
Right.
And then you're like, you know, uh, like, I don't know, is it Judge Judy? Is there an S on here? Anyway, but is Monroe getting more space on their main Virginia campus?
So we are in the process of looking at expansion. And
Hmm.
so we're right now we're about to go through a very extensive evaluation to
Hmm.
decide. We do know that growth needs to happen, and
Hmm.
so where does that need to be?
That's a big undertaking.
Yes, it is.
And in
That, that's
today's
that's why
economy,
we're taking. Yeah,
it's an expensive undertaking.
yes,
Hmm.
and that's why we're taking it very seriously,
Hmm.
and it's a board decision.
Hmm. So you have trainers from everywhere,
Hmm.
and many of whom have been with you 20 years.
Hmm. Or longer.
That's or longer. That was really a pleasure for me being in class, was having really wise teachers.
Yeah.
And they also didn't get startled. I noticed this. I have one woman who was talking about, that even the first evening, the demons in her room and the this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And nobody tried to fix her.
Yeah.
Nobody tried to exorcise the demons. So I watched over the course of the week and I watched that everybody was allowed their experience
Mm-hmm.
and none of it was judged as wrong or bad
Hmm.
or needed to be corrected. And by the time the week rolled around, this woman was actually having fun. She wasn't, up all night tossing and turning with demons. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, wow. But so I found that it was just a very nice to learn from people who were able to sit there and be wise
Mm-hmm.
and to really hold no judgment.
Hmm.
And that was that I just, hats off to you guys because that's a big accomplishment to have trainers who have really worked their own stuff and cleared their own stuff.
Hmm.
And then you're sitting there really getting wisdom and not some filtered something or other.
Right. And
Hmm.
and we do say that the only dogma we have and is that you're more than your physical body.
Hmm.
And if you don't believe that, you can still come.
Hmm.
Yeah, but so that, Bob Monroe was very focused on keeping the dogma out, and we have
Hmm.
continued that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to meet him before he died?
No, I did not. He died in 1995,
Oh, that was a long time ago.
and
Mhm.
I showed up in 2009.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But he just, as from me being a newbie, he was a genius.
Yes, I agree.
Hmm.
And when
Yeah.
you think about what he created with the information that was out there, the equipment that was out there,
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
even more amazing.
Yeah. So we have a couple minutes left. Do you have any thoughts for people who might want to try this? Number one. And number two, something more global. Do you have any words of wisdom for people about our journey as humans, as you've thought of things watching people come to these courses?
Yeah. So I wanted to say something that Bob Monroe said, and that was, we're here. This is a school, the Earth
Hmm.
School. He called it the Earth Life System.
Hmm.
And so when you think about, I remember when I was younger and I was going through these, searching for purpose and meaning.
Hmm.
And I just knew the day I found it, everything would be just so different, right? And it's not, because this is designed for us to have lessons to grow. And if we do find where we're supposed to be, like I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be right now more than I've
Hmm.
ever felt it before,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that there's not rose thorns, and issues and challenges.
Hmm.
You're still in this earth life system until you die,
Hmm.
at least this phase of it. Um, so I would say if the more you can look at it as a game,
Hmm.
I think it's better. I'm not saying to do it from a space of denial or avoidance, but it's just when you get in these overwhelmed states or something's really painful, to just try to step back a little bit and say, okay, this is good for me.
Hmm.
This is me learning
Hmm.
and self-evolving. And my goal in this lifetime is to leave here at the highest potential of myself.
Hmm.
And this is
I
how
have
I
a
lined it up to do it.
I have a girlfriend who's unbelievably tapped in. She's a Christian mystic. And I was so triggered about something one week. And all I wanted to do was escape it. I'm not going to be in this situation. I'm going to quit this function at work. I'm going to get out of this task group. I got to get away. I got to get away. I got to get away. And she stopped me and she said, "Your discomfort is a gift." I said, "You got to be, what do you mean it's a gift?
No way.
Yeah, like shut up." Doesn't feel very present like right now. And she said, the recognition of where you're in discomfort shows you what you really want to be doing. It
Ah,
teaches you the path that you want to choose. And the other thing we talk about often, I don't think she actually taught this to me, but perhaps one of my spiritual teachers, the whole purpose is not to, although meditation is beautiful and going in the cave and meditating for 17 years or any of that altered state, great. But the bigger purpose is take that and come here
and live.
and be a human
Mhm.
and learn more in these moments, in these experiences, and maybe even as you're changing yourself, change what's around you
Mhm.
and evolve the rest of us.
Mhm. All right. I agree.
And so, I'm going, okay, this is a gift. This is a gift. Wait a second. This could be a gift. As soon as I calm down and stop being pissed off, there's a gift here. I can't wait to find the gift because right now I'm really peeved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alan, one last thing for everybody. Do you have any words of wisdom for listeners?
Hmm. When I look back on my experiences, I would say one of the biggest things I think we do as humans is we're too hard on ourselves. So
Hmm.
I would ask us to be kinder to
Hmm.
ourselves as we blunder through this earth life system.
Hmm.
And then one of my favorite affirmations to say that's really helped me over the years when I get locked in on how I think something should be or how I think it should turn out
Hmm.
is when it doesn't, to use the affirmation, what's mine is mine, what's not is not. And it can really help you shift pretty quickly, from being disappointed,
Hmm.
because if it really is yours, you're going to get it.
Hmm.
And if it's not, that maybe it's going to line up differently. It's going to still have the essence of what you want, or maybe not. Maybe that
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
maybe you're intending for something that's not in your best interest. But
Or for me, trying to control something that's really not mine.
yes, that would be another one.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and so it could be another affirmation that's about that. But it's just,
Hmm.
if you can use, I found out affirmations are so much powerful than I think a lot of people realize, because it can just be a shift in a New York minute.
Hmm.
As soon as
Hmm.
that comes to mind, you can go, oh, wait a minute, what's mine is mine, what's not is not.
Hmm. Yeah, stop a minute. You don't have to put your foot over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you.
Everybody, Allyn Evans, CEO of the Monroe Institute, Reiki practitioner, energy medicine teacher, and now creator of new programs and new ways to expand into the world. Thank you so much. It was wonderful spending time with you.
Thank you.
All right. See ya. You've been listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin. Tune in next time while the doc talks health, spirituality, and the impact your beliefs have on every part of who you are, body and soul. Doc Martin unpacks the challenges we face as human beings. To learn more about Doc Martin and Maximum Medicine, visit www.sharonmartinmd.com.